Hi everybody, I am so excited to tell you about trains in Gresham. I love trains. All right. This is the schedule for the rest of the year coming up. We'll review this again at the end. And this is me at my master's degree graduation earlier this year. I have a master's degree in museum studies. Like Sylvie said, I've been a volunteer here for 1 year. I am a graduate of Gresham High School, and I love public transportation. Before we begin, we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. Portland and Gresham rest on unceded land that was home to traditional village sites, the Multnomah, Wasco, Cowlitz, Cathlamet, Clackamas, the bands of Chinook, Tualatin, Kalapuya, Malala, and many other tribes who made their homes along the Columbia River. We would like to thank them for taking care of the land, and I'll personally apologize for taking it away from them. This is the Cazadero Power Station. Does anybody here know where Cazadero is? Awesome, lots of you. Cazadero, for anyone who didn't know, is right here south of Estacada. Gresham's way up there. You might be wondering, why are we talking about a power station? I came here to listen to a talk about trains. Well, this power station is the reason that Gresham got a railroad in the first place. The Oregon Water and Power Company, as it was called at the time, there's been many different mergers and names, as we'll come to see, needed a railroad to transport the supplies for the dam. For the power station, they needed the railroad. They said, well, we might as well pick up some passengers along the way, I guess. And so we got our railroad. It started here at First and Alder in Portland and traveled all the way through here, stopping in Gresham, all the way down to Cazadero. Picked up passengers, freight, mail, the dam materials. And it was called the Springwater Line, or the Springwater Division. This is the full extent of just that line. And some of this route might be a little familiar to you. I'm sure a lot of you already know what became of it. The construction of the rail began in 1902, and it was completed by 1903. And it took 2 hours to get from there down to Estacada. And it took about 50 minutes to get from Gresham to Portland. There were 7 trips to Cazadero, 8 trips between Gresham and Portland per day. This reduced the travel time from Gresham to Portland by about 3 to 4 hours. Initially, the trains on the line ran with steam locomotives, but by 1905, they had electrified the line and were running electric locomotives and electric trolley cars. And this was before Gresham even got electricity to homes. They had an electric rail system. They did not have home electricity. This is a reproduction of the timetable from 1905. Take a moment to look at that. I think it's really cool that we were able to see that. According to Lena St. Clair, who was the wife of the Gresham Outlook editor, the first rail cars weren't the best. They were a little dingy, but they got you where you needed to go, and it was a promise of better things to come. The establishment of the rail line in Gresham was life-changing for a lot of the residents here. Like I said, the travel time was reduced by 3 to 4 hours to Portland, and now you could also ship your goods. Gresham, as a farming community, produced lots of, produce, milk, all sorts of things they could now ship to Portland. And Portland could ship things out here too, like ice cream. We could ship logs from Boring to Portland, and we can build dams out in Estacada, out at Bull Run. The residents of Gresham, we could now go shopping in Portland. They could go to plays in Portland. They could go to events. Gresham started to grow. Students who lived out in Boring could now attend high school because they couldn't get here before. Now, this is the Bull Run Power Station. In 1911, the Mount Hood Railway and Power Company, not Oregon Water and Power, completed the Bull Run line or the Mount Hood line out to the Sandy River. Now students from Cottrell could go to Gresham High School. And the train brought people, they went to the Sandy River to fish. They went to Dodge Park to recreate. You could go through Gresham, you could go shopping in Gresham, all of these new things. People started coming from Portland to Gresham to have fun, to recreate, to visit our events and our parks here. Parks such as Cedarville Park, this is the Cedarville Confectionery, which was right near there, started to pop up along the line. Picnic spots, swimming holes, sometimes even ice cream or treats at other small shops like the Cedarville Confectionery. People would come out on the train just to go get ice cream sometimes. And with towns and cities, they tend to have strict laws around dancing around this time. But the state laws were a little more lax, and so you could go out to Cedarville Park, not within Gresham city limits, not within Portland city limits, and you could do your dancing. They were only governed by the state laws. And even Oaks Park, which opened 2 days before the Lewis and Clark Exposition in 1905, and was known as the Oaks at the time, was called a trolley park, because you could take the trolley right to it, and it was developed by the train companies because they wanted people to come ride their trains on the weekends, not just commute. In 1905, they added service from Linneman Junction up to Troutdale. I might not be able to reach it. Right there. And in 1906, Oregon Water and Power combined with Portland Consolidated Street Railway, Portland and Suburban, and Portland General Electric to form the Portland Railway Light and Power Company, or PRLNP. And this unified the entire interurban system in Portland, down to Oregon City, everything, under one company. The completion of the Mount Hood line to Dodge Park and the Bull Run in 1911, like I said, let people go out and have fun out there. There was bathhouses, picnic tables, a covered dance pavilion for special daytime dances. And when these events were held, they pulled special excursion trains, just like this one. This photo is from the Oregon Historical Society. They were special open-air cars, 6 to 8 cars, all out to Dodge Park for these special events. This trestle has long since been dismantled, and to be honest, I'm not sure I'd want to ride a train across that. It's kind of scary looking. The Mount Hood line originated in Montevilla. It connected to the PRLNP tracks at Ruby Junction, and it traveled southeast through Gresham and then past Orient, Pleasant Home, out to Dodge Park. The residents of Pleasant Home actually considered this railroad track so important, a lot of them picked up their businesses and moved them north half a mile so they were on the track instead of on the Bluff Road. And I thought that was such a fun fact. I was, well, why not? Makes it easier to ship, right? This line, the Mount Hood line, it took campfire girls out to Camp Nominee. It took lumber and cordwood into Portland to be sold and processed, and it took students to high school. A few well-off Portland families even established summer homes, vacation homes out in Ambleside. This is right along the Springwater line. They started building them around 1919 times. These are hand-tinted photos from the 1930s of one house and of Ambleside Drive. Unfortunately, the road does not look that beautiful anymore, and a lot of the houses are now gone, but it is a natural area that protects Hogan cedars, which are a native tree to Gresham, and I don't know, they grow only here, and that protects them there. And Ambleside is located right down here. This map is actually from 1948, and you can see this is the boundary of Gresham in 1948. Where my parents live over here, not even in Gresham city limits at that time. Here's Cedarville, Linneman, not in Gresham. All this stuff that it's in Gresham, there's Weston Keys up there, not in Gresham at the time. All right. Now, when 1905 happened, the railroad was completed, Gresham had about 150 people living there. Very, very small town. And in 1910, 540 people. In 1930, 1,635 people lived in Gresham. The railroad really allowed a lot of people to move here because they could now commute to Portland to work instead. Linneman Station is named after the Linneman family, and John Linneman, when he came here in the 1800s, or late 1800s, he walked to Portland every week to be a tailor, and he walked home on the weekends. Unfortunately, he died before the railroad came to Gresham, but he would have greatly benefited from that. This is Linneman Station, as it once looked. Some of our stations looked like this. They had an indoor waiting area, indoor ticketing counter. Others were a bit bigger, like this Gresham Depot here, or the Fairview Depot, like this one. Others, they were really small and just a roof to stand under, like this one, Jenny Station. Others were what was called a flag station. They didn't have a stop. You had to stick your hand out the window and let the driver know to stop the train so you could get off. I thought that was so funny. I was like, how do you know where you are? How do you know if you're in the right place? However, it was not all smiles at Portland Railway Light and Power. The Mount Hood line was initially intended to be extended to Sandy and then all the way out to Cherryville. But they proposed the right-of-way and nothing ever happened. Another means of transportation was rapidly becoming very popular, the automobile. In 1912, the Gresham Outlook reported that there were 18 cars in Gresham. But auto dealers were opening up as early as 1908. Charles Latourelle opened this dealer initially, but he sold to the Rakers in 1917. W.A. Hessel, he originally sold farming implements. He started selling Overlands, and then he opened a Chrysler dealership in 1924. Ed Osborne opened a Chevy dealership in 1918. And the Beaver State Motor Company actually built a manufacturing plant here in Gresham. But they only ever manufactured between 1 and 4 cars. No one seems to know for sure. And they stopped manufacture either because the loss of the supply chain for a critical part from England or because Overland sued them. Also don't know, but that facility became Olympic Manufacturing, which made wooden veneer, and that was actually located where the new library is being built today at the corner of Eastman and Division. I always get Division and Burnside mixed up, and I've lived here for how long? In 1927, the Outlook reported there were now 335 cars owned by the approximately 1,500 residents of Gresham. 5 dealerships, 7 garages, and 9 gas stations. In 1927, also, the Troutdale line folded. In 1930, PRLP closed the Mount Hood and Bull Run line, and PRLP was split into 2 divisions. The trolleys were now Portland Traction Company, and the electricity generation and distribution was now PEPCO, Portland Electric Power Company, which would shortly become Portland General Electric again, which already had existed. Like I said, many, many, many name changes. In 1935, Springwater line service past Boring was ended. For a while, only freight ran on the lines, but passenger service was established again for about 3 years during World War II due to gas rationing. The final passenger interurban, which I believe is this one, left Gresham in 1949. Intermittent freight service was still provided until 1990, and then the tracks were abandoned. In 1971, the creation of a transit mall, which is a road or a set of roads where private automobile traffic is prohibited or greatly restricted, was proposed for downtown Portland in a report to TriMet, who had at this point been managing public transportation in Multnomah County for several years after acquiring the Larson family's blue buses. At this point, they were running lots and lots of bus service already, but we really needed more improvement happening to our transit. People still couldn't quite, commutes, the highways really needed work. And in 1973, TriMet applied for a grant to create the transit mall in downtown Portland, which is there today, and we still have it where the trains run on the streets and the traffic's a little bit reduced. In 1974, the public rejected the Mount Hood Freeway, which was going to end up destroying a lot of neighborhoods along US 26. And so the city, Portland, the state, they were like, well, we got to do something else because we need more transportation. In 1975, an interim transportation plan was adopted, and it rejected previous plans for 54 new highway projects that would total $2 million. This new plan proposed more modest roadway projects and a future network of transit ways in major travel corridors. This plan was regarded as a benchmark in Portland's urban planning evolution and like a turning page for a new type of urban planning and civic development. In 1976, the Banfield Freeway Corridor was determined to be the top priority for transit improvements. Initially, the Banfield Transitway was intended to be for bus use, but we're doing this study, I think over several years, to compare different alternative transit scenarios, busways, high occupancy vehicle lanes, things like that. The community asked for light rail to be considered. In 1979, light rail was selected as the transit option of choice. In 1980, we received federal approval, which made the Banfield Light Rail one of the very first federally funded light rail projects. And on September 5th, 1986, after 37 years without passenger rail service in Gresham, the East Side Max line between Gresham and downtown Portland opened for revenue service. This is exactly 12 years before I was born. The West Side extension to Hillsborough opened in 1998, and the Red Line to the airport opened in 2001. And that is when the East Side West Side line then became the Blue Line. Today, the 5 MAX lines carry more than 500,000 passengers every week. Now, after the abandonment of the Springwater Division tracks in 1990, the city of Portland purchased them in 1991 with the intent to take up the tracks and do something with them. In September of 1991, they released their master plan for the Springwater Trail Corridor, which detailed and proposed the development of the former Springwater Division rail line into an outdoor recreation trail as part of the 40-mile loop system, which was a trail system originally proposed in 1904 as part of the Lewis and Clark exposition. This plan for the trail included the interpretive opportunities that discussed the trail's history as a train track. And it was developed with the help of citizens groups who deemed it important that the trail follow the long curves and straight sections that delineate it as a railway. The trail, which travels through Gresham just south of Main City Park and can take you all the way to the Willamette River, not only provides recreational opportunities, it also provides people with an easy vehicle-free way to get around town. For example, the trail's about 5 minutes walking from where I live, and I can get to Gresham in about 45 minutes walking, 20 minutes biking, and the road, I'm protected from the road. Vehicles aren't gonna run me off the sidewalk. You never know what's gonna happen, right? When I attended Gresham High School, I walked along the trail for about a third of my route to school. The Springwater Trail was dedicated in 1992, and it was Oregon's first trail that was converted as part of the national Rails to Trails effort. Linneman Station is the only remaining station, and unfortunately, it's not the original one. The original one was burnt down in 1995 after an arson. It was rebuilt with the intent of being a trailhead and possibly an interpretive center, but it sits empty and nothing happens with it. So we're curious, the city owns it, they kind of want to do something with it. What should we do with it? Should we make it an interpretive center? A little museum? Should it be a coffee kiosk? Who knows? But we want to know what the community wants. Yeah? Again, some upcoming events and things, but does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to say? Yes.
My grandparents lived in the Gresham train station from 1920, 1918 to 1930, thereabouts. My mother was born in 1920, and she talks about living in the Gresham train station and playing in Johnson Creek. So 1925, thereabouts, they were there. Whether they were there before, whether my mom was born there, don't know that, and then don't know when. They moved from there. Eventually they moved up onto Wallula, then moved over to 324 Roberts, single-family residence next to a parking lot. Hicks department store, I think it was. And my grandfather, after the railroad business all went away, went to work for Gresham Transfer as a dispatcher.
Very, very cool. One of our guests just shared with us that his grandparents used to live and work in the Gresham train station, and his mother used to play in Johnson Creek while they lived there, and that they later, after the train business went away, moved to work for, where was it?
Clarence worked for Gresham Transfer, but they had moved up. He built a house up on Wallula.
Okay. They built a house on Wallula, but he worked for Portland Transfer as a dispatcher. I'm just repeating so that the video can hear your story as well. Yeah?
When did they build the PGE plant at Three Lakes?
The PGE plant. I was just looking at a picture of that one, I think. Oh. Yeah, the 40s, I think, 40s, 50s-ish, something like that. The question was when they built the PGE plant, where at?
3 Lakes.
At 3 Lakes. Yeah?
Is there any record of like the crews that built the train tracks themselves?
So one of the sources that I used for this was someone talking about working on like the Bull Run line, who had lived in Cottrell, rode the train to high school, then ended up working for the railroad, and ended up taking up the railroad when they closed the Bull Run line. I am sure somewhere someone has record of the crews. I didn't find anything in my research here with our internal documents, but I'm sure somewhere someone's got them. I mean, PGE still exists. We still pay them for our electricity. So they must have something somewhere. Yes?
Is it true that the Springwater bypass that follows the original route of the rail?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Mm-hmm. I think the Springwater Trail sticks as closely as they possibly could to the original rail, because like I mentioned, that was important to the citizens groups that the curves of the railroad and the original grade kind of be met. And one of the reasons the Springwater Trail is so desirable for recreation is because of how flat it is. Like, people in wheelchairs can use it even, and like that's just really awesome.
Yeah. When we bought our first house down on Park Drive, the tracks were still there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
They used to run the train out to Quarry to load the lumber.
Yep. I remember reading that like they would do special trips out to Boring to pick up lumber, but they didn't have regular service anymore. Yes, sir?
I rode the last train with Dick Salmon before he passed away. I work with trolley cars down at Brooks, and we play Reimer locomotives. I even have my speeder down there as roadmaster with a Land Shore trolley like Oswego, all volunteer. So, yeah, I rode the last train before they were tearing up the track.
Yeah, they did do it. They did a few special excursion trains, I remember, for rail fans specifically. After the railroad was actually closed, they did run a few special ones, which is very cool. I also saw a picture of them burning one of the cars for scrap, and that was kind of sad. Yes, sir?
There are a couple of small alterations on the route. That's only at roadways where they
Yeah.
do safety improvements.
Exactly.
For the crosswalk. Right?
Yep. Yeah, I was reading their whole plan for the trail, and like each intersection with a road they had a plan for. The intersection at Park Drive, the intersection at 190th in Pleasant Valley, and the intersection like going at for Highland Drive that there was got to be the only one where they went under the road at that point. And then I was reading that when they added the bridge off of Eastman Parkway onto 7th, that people were very upset about that because they were very worried about the trail and the riparian area right around there. Even though that neighborhood, which is where we live, like my family lives there, only had one road out at the time, so it was very dangerous. Yes, sir?
Yeah, I volunteered down at the Oregon Rail Heritage.
Awesome.
Water out.
Yeah.
And we used to have a DVD that, I don't remember if it was a fellow that came in that had his father, I think it was 8mm or 16mm films put on a DVD that we used to sell during the last run.
Oh, that's awesome. I was just at the Rail Heritage Foundation a couple weeks ago, actually. So,
yeah, I was wondering if your research turned up any information on the status of the rest of the 40-mile village.
not really. Apparently there's 140 miles total or something, but not much is talked about the rest of the loop. You know, there's the Gresham Fairview Trail is there. I can't remember the names of any of the other ones, though. I've been so focused on Springwater and following its little trail line all the way when you get to Springwater on the Willamette, where it joins back up with current trail track or train tracks, which is interesting to see on the map.
Any notable wrecks?
Yeah, I chose not to talk about them because that's kind of sad, but there was, a lot. We didn't have the gate drops now that we have for the MAX, but I mean, even in the MAX's first 9 months of service, there was 37 accidents. But yes, the trolleys hit cars, the trolleys killed people, people fell off of them. There was, it wasn't all smiles. I just didn't want to talk too much about it because it's kind of sad and gruesome. No. Does anyone have suggestions for Linneman Station? No, I live right by there, actually. If you go onto Powell Loop from Powell, so the original path of Powell, it's right there.
Well, isn't there a tavern right there?
Yep, Cedarville Inn is right there. It's, right at the intersection of Pleasant View Drive. It's right off the trail. You walk right past it.
There's that place on the park, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, an interpretive center.
It is a location, though, where, from my perspective, ripe for vandalism.
Yeah, yeah. It already has vandalism problem. Well, why do you think it got arsoned? And we also don't know what color it should be, because it definitely shouldn't be green.
Check out the end of the line of Springwater down the Mooring. They got a nice park at the end there.
Yeah.
Get some
I used to have cabooses there at the time.
Very cool.
By the depot for a torch.
Too many of these depots are getting caught on fire. What's up with that?
So they could at least get the station opened up for the Hood Coast race.
Yeah,
That would be
that would be very convenient.
You might make some money,
Yeah.
you know.
So where the trolley is on the left at the depot, head down to Fairview, do anybody know at the end of track where the depot was, what is that road? Maps, anything?
In Fairview?
Yes, at the end of track. Heading towards Columbia.
So up here.
Is that where that caboose is now?
I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering, is it wiped out big parking lot or?
Yeah, Can't read that one. I'm not sure. Ooh, we get to see. I'm gonna zoom in on it. I can't really see it, but yeah.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I can look at some other maps. If you send the museum an email, I can do that research for you and I can find out. Yes.
So I think the question about the color station filtered to me. And Richard Thompson and I couldn't come up with any colors except gray. There
Gray.
was not, we don't think there was a standard color of the station.
No.
Much like in the Southern Pacific had the yellow and brown.
Yeah, this picture.
It was probably just a grayish.
Yeah, in this picture, I know this station in this picture, because it was written on the back of this photograph, had just been painted in orange brown, but this picture is from the 1940s.
That was the same, Bell Station was colored that as well.
Where was that station at?
This one? I think this is the one on the Mount Hood line. So this would have been.
Gresham
Around here, I think.
transfer, by where the hospital used to be. That's what I think.
I apologize, there's been something in my eye for the last 2 hours.
Are you familiar with Pleasant Home?
A little bit.
Okay, for the exact spot, I go there all the time. The Pleasant Home Saloon was the exact spot where the depot was.
Okay. Cool.
Cars going by, 1970 picks. I was born too late.
Yeah, you were.
I was born too late.
Yeah, so Pleasant Homes, that would be right about here.
Pleasant Home Saloon. It's just the restaurant got built away from the road.
That makes sense.
Wouldn't it have been practical to paint the train stations, especially when they were still doing steam, a darker color?
Probably.
Coal transfer and
All the pictures we have of Linneman, they're like it's just the same, like very similar color to that. Like it's definitely light colored.
It's got a two-tone
Yeah.
to it, but
And I suppose with color, I think it doesn't do it.
no,
It's definitely.
Powell in the back.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure which direction this picture is facing, but I believe that is Powell, yes. Yeah, yeah, so that would be the original, what Powell Loop now. That was the original curve of Powell. Yeah, Powell Valley Road at the time, and it would have gone onto Powell Loop. I was showing someone that the other day, or earlier today actually, that how Powell used to have that very terrible curve to it. Now it's less bad. The new one has that bump out too. I was looking at a ton of pictures of it today. It's just not in the picture that I put on it. It's on the other side.
yeah, they don't have that bay there.
Well, it's on the other side.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the picnic table is on the west side.
Yeah, this is from the trail side because the picnic tables are there, I think. It's also, they didn't put it, but when they rebuilt it, they didn't put it back in the old spot because they had moved it, right?
Oh, yeah,
It's in a slightly different location. They were planning to put it back where it belonged, but they never did.
The picture of the Gresham station,
Oh, sorry, pushing the wrong buttons.
It's up for a picture.
that, so my mother and her parents lived upstairs in that building.
Oh, so this one was the one on the Springwater line.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. That one does look more house-like than the others, that's for sure.
But it also looks like on the right-hand side, freight cars.
It does.
At the
And
spur
my
line.
understanding was that the passenger, that Linneman passengers split off up to the south side of Gresham and out towards Sandy, and the freight went north and up here, just north of where we are right now.
I didn't see anything saying that, but I believe you.
Well, yeah, I mean, it would have to be at a junction between two railroads, right? And what you're saying, the passenger line and the freight line, so.
No, it was interesting because when,
The spur, and they share the route, they would share the track.
because it was standard, these trolleys ran on standard gauge track. They were not on narrow gauge track. That's something specific that someone who worked on the railroad said, do not confuse these interurbans with the city interurbans. These ones are faster and they run on standard track.
Were these federally funded?
No. We didn't get federal transit funding till the max.
And they used our freeway monies.
Yeah, I guess federal public transit.
And I can remember my grandfather talking about berries, loading berries.
Yep.
Train, boxcars.
Raspberry capital of the world right here.
Yeah, on the north side of the tracks that run a division, Burnside, somewhere like that. As opposed to the ones that are.
Yeah, some of the max tracks follow original tracks.
And that makes sense because the railway company, whoever it was, already had the right of way.
Yep. Yeah, and I think Portland Traction still, they either sold to Union Pacific or they just let Union Pacific use it. They might still own some of it. Sold to Union Pacific, yeah.
So what exactly is where that building, where the station was, what is south there?
South of the city park.
The main city park?
Yeah.
I think it's, so this is the bridge through, this is that warehouse there. By the baseball field. The tracks right there, you can see the crossing sign. I think it was around this area, because this is right through the south of the park. Yeah. Yeah, Johnson Creek is right, but the bridge is crossing Johnson Creek right here, so.
And the building on the left is?
Hazardous waste storage. It's the building on the left, it's still there. It's still there. If you walk right down there, it looks a lot nicer now. They've painted a nice mural on it and everything, but it is still there.
Is that like an extension of Roberts Street?
Main Street. Yeah, if you drive straight down from here, you'll see that view, but modern.
Yeah, I feel like that station could have been right there where the ball fields are.
Probably.
Yeah, that makes sense. In the parking lot for the.
Mm-hmm.
One time, quite a few years ago, I went down there driving around. I forget where the station was. And I got the feeling that the station was on the south side. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But it's on the north side.
And just east of the maintenance shed, that other building there, is the trestle bridge.
So that's at Hogan, right?
So this is Walters. Okay, this is Roberts. So the park is right here. You can see they haven't moved the creek yet, I don't think. But yeah, so it's around here where someone's decided to draw a red box. I think it's there. Ish. This map is very difficult to read.
So the creek used to run right through the park? And
Yes.
you moved it to-
Where it is now.
Okay, so then
It did, yes, so at the time, so like I said, this map is from 1948. The creek would have gone to the base of the hill in the park now. There used to be businesses there along the south side of Powell on stilts to protect them from the creek flooding all the time. Because, the creek did follow a different path. And then they moved it. All right, so does anybody have any more questions or comments?
One more question.
Oh, yeah.
So when they dismantled the track, did they document it all, like what they were doing? So like for instance, where spur lines went off and all that?
Yeah, I hope so, but not that I'm aware of.
That's for that railhead guy here, that they.
I would love to know where all the spurs were, but
We and him must have walked 10 miles on that trail, and we knew where some, we lived by the Stanley Station, which isn't on your thing there, but we knew from memory where some of them were, but there had to have been more of them.
yeah, this map, you can see them kind of, is really difficult. This map is very, bigger. Obviously I showed a bigger version, but there's a stop there, that circle, I believe. Stop here, Cotton. There's Linneman right there, Linneman Junction. So you can see some of the stops on here. If I go back to the full map, they're all covered up by the green line that I drew on there. But the original of this map, you can kind of see them. I have we have a digital copy of the map that can be viewed on the computer and zoomed in, very high resolution. But yeah.
One more.
Yeah?
One more question.
Yes.
I'm really curious about this. I talked to a kid who used to work at the Estacada Fire Department. We had a good board meeting, and I knew some friends that went on hunt to try to verify it. I would love to know the line that continued past Cazadero along Clackamas, now the road you drive on, you're on the road grade, up past Indian Henry, to know if there's still 2 logging locomotives up there in the woods that are landlocked.
I don't know, but I'm going to try to find out because that's really interesting.
There's no roads to them.
Huh.
And all the trees around the area have white mark on them,
Interesting.
landlocked.
Very strange.
Caught fire in order to get back to Cazadero. But the guy went hunting, came back up, seen these things covered in briars. In between the 2 engines, there's a tree going through the couple of knuckles.
Wow.
He didn't have a camera with him to take a picture of it.
Someone else needs to get out there. We all got a camera in our pocket nowadays. Someone else needs to go find him. That's very interesting. I want to try to find out more about that. That's very, very interesting.
That would fly the area in an airplane. Just
Yeah.
scam.
Someone with a
Especially in
drone.
the wintertime.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Google Maps should take do all their satellite imagery in the winter.
Fires burned through there a couple of years ago.
Yeah, anywhere above Indian Henry, up past, because the road you drive goes across Clackamas, but this line had to go straight.
Yeah.
God knows where.
I'll do some research. Oh yeah, now I'm interested. I gotta find out. All right.
All right, well, everyone give.
Here, I'll go back to the